Excluded from for weddings I finally had my own without them. Now they tried to guilt me back, but I blocked them all. My name is Claire, and I am the youngest of 5 children. My siblings Adam, Ethan, Brooke, and Josh were all so much older than me that I sometimes felt like I belonged to a different family. By the time I was old enough to develop memories, they had already moved out, gone to college, or begun their adult lives. It was as if I were an afterthought, a strange tag-along they had to deal with. Nonetheless, I adored them. When you are the youngest child, you look up to your elder siblings as if they were heroes. When I was little, I assumed Adam had hung the moon. He was the calm, older brother who could do no wrong. Ethan was quieter and more serious, but I still loved him. Brooke was my older sister, and I always hoped she would bring me into her life and teach me how to be like her. Josh, the youngest of the older ones, felt the most like me in terms of age, yet he'd kept me at a distance. Adam's wedding was the first time I realized how little I mattered to them. I was 10 years old. 10 is a strange age in which you feel old enough to participate in adult activities while still being treated as a child. When Adam and his fiancée Sarah announced their child-free wedding, I figured it didn't include me. I mean, I wasn't some random kid who would throw food or yell throughout the ceremony. I was his sister. I recall the day my parents sat me down. I'd been so eager that I asked my mother if I may wear one of her necklaces on the big day. That is when she said it. Adam and Sarah are having an adults-only wedding, Claire. You're not going to be able to come. I stared at her for a moment trying to process, but I'm not like the other kids. I explained, attempting to reason with her. I'll be quiet, I promise. She patted my head as if I were a puppy. It's just for adults, sweetie. You'll understand when you're older. I didn't comprehend anything. I cried in my room for several hours. Adam was my brother, and I wanted to see him married. I wanted to be there to see Sarah, who I already thought of as my sister, walk down the aisle. However, my parents left me with a babysitter. I recall staring at the clock that day, contemplating what I was missing. When Adam returned from his honeymoon, I suspected he'd bring it up. Maybe he'd apologize for not being able to attend and tell me a humorous story about the wedding. But he did not. He acted as if I wasn't even a part of it, or that I wasn't worth mentioning. 2 years later, Ethan became engaged. I was 12 years old at the time, and I expected things to be different. I was older, calmer, and much better behaved. I didn't complain or make a fuss, and I made sure everyone knew it. So, when they announced that his wedding was also child-free, I thought, okay, but this time I'll be invited. Nope. Again, I received the same speech. Ethan and his fiancée want the wedding to be adults only, Claire. It's not personal. Personal, not personal. It felt intimate. How could it not be personal if it occurred twice? I tried not to cry this time. I was older and wanted to appear more mature. I did not beg or shout. I simply sat quietly as my parents made their excuses. My mother even attempted to soothe me. You'll have your own wedding someday, and it'll be wonderful. You'll see? But it didn't help me feel better. I was beginning to realize something. My siblings did not consider me as family, at least not in the same sense that I saw them. By the time Brooke got engaged, I was 15. I was a full-fledged teen who wanted nothing more than to feel included. Brooke initially had no intention of prohibiting children from attending her wedding. She wanted everyone to attend. Of course, the family had to be involved. My aunts and uncles repeatedly said stuff like, it's so refreshing to have a wedding without kids running wild, she said. Children just make things so chaotic. Brooke eventually caved. The regulation became, no one under the age of 16. I was 15. So close that it felt like a slap in the face. I walked to Brooke and asked, can I just be an exception? I'm your sister. I'll be quiet, I promise. Brooke stared at me with serious eyes and said, kid, if I make an exception for you, what about the other kids? It wouldn't be fair. Fair? Are you kidding me? I lost it. I began to scream. It's not fair that I can't go to any of your weddings. I'm not just some kid, I'm your sister. That was when my folks became involved. I was grounded for 6 months because I disrespected. Brooke and caused trouble. 6 months. I spent the majority of that time in my room, stewing my rage and hurt. When Josh got engaged, I was 17 and I didn't even bother asking. I already knew I would not be invited. Sure enough, the announcement arrived. A childless wedding. At that point, I had become numb to it. I did not cry, yell, or ask why. I just accepted it. What wounded me the most was that my cousin Amanda, who had just turned 18, had been invited. I learned about it through family gossip. Apparently, they believed 18 was the cutoff. The irony was not lost on me. Amanda was just a few months older than me, but she was able to go since she had reached the magical age of adulthood. When my parents inquired why, I hadn't made a big fuss about congratulating Josh. I simply shrugged. I wrote him a brief text. Congrats. Hope it's a great day. Then I shut myself in my room as I always do. By that point, I had begun to withdraw emotionally. I knew I simply didn't matter to them. I was not their little sister. I was just a kid, and it stung. It truly ached. Years have passed. After the last wedding, I stopped trying to fit into my siblings' life because, frankly, I was exhausted. I'm tired of being left out. I was tired of being the kid's sister who no one cared about except when it was convenient for them. By the time I met my now fiancé Noah, I had very much given up on the family dynamic. I wasn't expecting much from anyone anymore. Noah was the first person who listened when I told him about my family. I recall sitting on his couch and telling him how I'd been barred from 4 of my siblings' weddings things, and he appeared really surprised. Wait, they didn't invite you? Not even when you were like 15? Nope. I answered, trying to act like it didn't hurt anymore. What the hell, you're their sister, remarked the man. He sat there for a minute, shaking his head before saying, that's seriously messed up. That's when I understood things were really messed up. I had spent years convincing myself that it was normal. Typical? Child-free wedding seems logical on paper. It wasn't like I was intentionally targeted right. But no, for times my family chose to exclude me. Not one sibling thought, hey, Claire should be there. It was not typical. So when Noah and I got engaged a few years later, I knew one thing for sure. My wedding would be different. My wedding was going to be filled with individuals who genuinely cared about me. Family, people who wanted to celebrate me rather than simply showing up because it was required of them. That's when I made my decision. I wouldn't invite my siblings. It wasn't a huge dramatic moment. I did not send an angry letter or publicize it in the family group chat. I simply left them off the guest list. Simple as that. I knew it was going to blow up someday, but I decided to deal with it when it happened. The first indicator of problems occurred around 2 months before the wedding. My mother contacted me randomly one afternoon, acting strangely upbeat. I should have known something was up. So, Claire, she asked in that voice she used when she wanted something. How are the wedding plans coming along? Good, I replied wearily. Everything's almost done. That's great, she remarked, stopping for a while before adding. Your brothers and sisters haven't received their invitations yet. Did you send them out already? My heart began thumping. I did not want to have this conversation. Not yet. Yeah, I sent them out? I replied, attempting to sound nonchalant. She did not miss a beat. Well, they didn't get one. Maybe it got lost in the mail. I exhaled. Mom, I didn't invite them. The other end of the connection was silent with a heavy stunned pause. Then followed the blast. What? Claire, how could you not invite your own family, your siblings? What's wrong with you? I gripped the phone and tried to remain calm. They didn't invite me to their weddings, Mom. Not a single one of them. So I'm returning the favor. It's fair. She spoke as if I had just committed a crime. That was different. You were young. They didn't mean to hurt you. I laughed bitterly. Well, it hurts anyway. And now I'm done pretending like it didn't. She started the guilt trip right away. Claire, you're being spiteful. Family is family. You don't just shut them out like this. What are people going to think? And there it was. What would people think? My mother's favorite concern. I cut her off before she could say anything further. I don't care what people think, Mom. This is my wedding. and I'm only inviting people who care about me. They didn't care enough to include me in their big days, so I don't see why they deserve to be at mine." She hung up on me. I was not surprised. That night, the group chat exploded. Brooke began by acting false, like she always does. "Hey Em, did something happen with the mail? We haven't gotten our invites yet." Then came Ethan, as blunt as ever. "What's going on? Why aren't we invited?" I stared at my phone for a long time, considering whether to respond. Part of me wanted to tell them exactly how much they had wounded me over the years, but another part of me couldn't see the point. They would not get it. They never had. So I said nothing. I just left the chat on read. Noah noticed I was silent throughout supper and inquired what was wrong. I showed him the messages and he just shook his head. "You don't owe them an explanation, Em. They made their choices." "Yeah, but I trailed off. They're going to make me out to be the bad guy." "I know it. Let them," he stated firmly. "You know the truth. That's all that matters." The next day, my parents unexpectedly arrived at my residence. I didn't even need to inquire what they were there for. My mother stormed in as soon as I opened the door. "What are you thinking, Claire? Not inviting your own siblings to your wedding? What kind? What kind of person does that?" I attempted to remain calm, even though my patience was running out. "Mom, I told you. They didn't think I was important enough to include in their weddings, so I'm not including them in mine." My father finally spoke up, his voice severe. "You're being childish, Claire. You're holding on to something that happened years ago." That was when I snapped. "I was a child when they did it, Dad. I begged to be at their weddings and they all shut me out. Don't talk to me about being childish when I was the one left crying at home." 4 times. They didn't know how to respond. My mother looked like she was going to cry, but I refused to let her guilt me this time. "You can keep defending them if you want, but I'm not changing my mind. If they cared about me, they would have shown it back then." They left, enraged and frustrated. Over the next few days, my siblings' text became increasingly unpleasant. Ethan called me selfish. Brooke claimed I was wrecking the family. Josh didn't even bother to sugarcoat it. "You're being petty, Claire. Grow up." I did not respond to any of them. I didn't have to justify myself anymore. Noah held me one night as I scrolled through their texts saying, "I'm proud of you, for standing up for yourself." And for the first time, I was proud of myself. After the initial round of family drama, I expected things to settle down. I expected them to moan to each other for a time, perhaps complain to some distant cousins, and then move on. That was how it generally went when my family didn't get their way. But I underestimated how big a deal they were going to make. It started little. Brooke, of course, couldn't resist writing this passive-aggressive status on Facebook. "Family is forever even when some people forget what that word means." I rolled my eyes so hard I thought they'd become trapped. Noah was scrolling next to me on the couch, and when I showed him the post, he shook his head. "What is she?" 14. Basically, I mumbled, attempting to shake it off. I persuaded myself it did not matter. I knew the truth, and I was certain I was not doing anything illegal. But it still bothered me. It's difficult not to feel wounded when your own sister openly criticizes you. It did not stop there. Over the next 3 days, small jabs started appearing in our large family group chat. I had muted it a long time ago, but Noah still looked at his phone one afternoon and remarked, "Claire, you might want to see this." The messages were flying. "Brooke, it is very terrible when family members prioritize petty grudges over love." "Ethan, I simply don't understand. I believed we were better than this." And then Adam, good old I'm the eldest and. I know best Adam decided to take his shot. "Claire, I had no idea how much bitterness you had stored up. It's very sad. You're damaging relationships because of something that happened years ago." I looked at the screen, my blood boiling. They did not obtain it. They still didn't understand it. They made it sound like I was exaggerating a little issue, as if I hadn't spent my entire life being excluded. I wanted to respond. I wanted to put out everything they had done so they could see how hypocritical they were being. But I knew better. Arguing with them would only give them more ammunition. To avoid taking responsibility, they'd twist my statements into something dramatic, unstable, or whatever else they wanted to say. Instead, I did something they never expected. I abandoned the group chat. That night, my mother called me. I knew she'd heard about the group chat episode since she started ranting the moment I replied. "Claire, what is wrong with you?" "Hi, Mom," I answered bluntly. "Don't start with that attitude," she exclaimed. "Do you know what you've done? Your siblings are heartbroken. You're destroying this family." Heartbroken? I chuckled cruelly. They ignored me my entire childhood, but now they're heartbroken. Give me a break. "You're being so spiteful," she remarked. "You've always been like this, holding on to grudges and making everything about you." That was when I lost it. "Mom, I'm the one keeping grudges, Adam got married when I was 10. 10. I cried because I wanted to be there, but you all said I wasn't important enough to be included, and it did not end there. This happened again and again and again. I pleaded to attend Brooke's wedding, but she said no since it would be unfair. That was years ago. She replied dismissively, "Yeah, and I'm still living with the way it made me feel. You all decided I wasn't important enough back then. Why should you suddenly get a front row seat to my life now?" She did not have an answer to that. Instead, she attempted to flip the script. "This isn't about the weddings, Claire. This is about you pushing everyone away because you're bitter. Noah's probably encouraging you, isn't he?" I groaned. "Mom, stop blaming Noah. It has nothing to do with him. This is about me finally realizing I deserve better than to be treated like I don't matter." Her tone softened as if she were attempting to play the concerned mother. "Claire, you don't understand. Family is all you'll have in the end. Friends and partners come and go, but your family is forever." "No," I replied firmly. "Family is supposed to care about you. They're supposed to love and support you. That's not what you've been to me." She began crying. Big dramatic cries that I knew were more about guilt tripping me than anything else. "You'll regret this one day, Claire," she murmured through tears. "You'll see? I don't think I will," I replied quietly before hanging up. Over the next week, things deteriorated. I blocked Brooke and Ethan on social media because I couldn't stand their frequent snarky remarks. My mother contacted Noah twice, reportedly trying to talk sense into him. He didn't respond. Then Adam wrote me a long email on forgiveness and family togetherness. He even had the audacity to quote a Bible verse about letting go of anger. I did not respond. Noah and I sat together one night, and I told him everything. It's like they're determined to pretend I'm the problem. They don't see how messed up it is that they ignored me for years and then flipped out when I finally stood up for myself. "You know what it is?" Noah inquired. "They're not mad that they weren't invited. They're mad that they don't get to control you anymore." That hit me like a blow in the stomach. He was correct. My entire life, my family had treated me as an afterthought, someone they could disregard whenever it suited them, but now that I was doing something for me, which they couldn't control, they couldn't take it. I said, "They'll get over it eventually," but I wasn't sure I believed it. Then Noah said something that really stuck with me. "Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But either way, it's not your problem." He was correct. For the first time, I knew I owed my family nothing. Not my time, not my attention, and certainly not an invitation to my wedding. A week later, my father wrote me a short, guilt-ridden text. "Claire, your mother is not doing well. She is very disturbed about all of this. Perhaps you should reconsider." I looked at it for a while before responding. Perhaps she should have considered it before neglecting me all those years. I pushed the send button and immediately blocked his number. For the first time in a long while, I felt liberated. The weeks leading up to my wedding were an odd combination of excitement and anxiety. On the one hand, I was overjoyed to finally marry Noah and enjoy the wedding day I had longed for since I was a child. However, the turmoil with my family continued to linger like an uninvited guest. My parents had ceased phoning me directly, most likely because I had banned my mother's phone number following her last meltdown, but that didn't stop others. Words, my aunt called me out of the blue. I hadn't spoken to her in years, so I was immediately suspicious. When her name came up on my phone, I responded and she got straight to the point. "Claire, honey, I don't understand why you're making such a big deal out of this." She replied with a charming but condescending tone. "Family is family. It's not right to leave your siblings out of your wedding." I sighed and gripped the phone a little tighter. "Aunt Linda, it's not just about the wedding. This has been years in the making. I'm not going to change my mind." "But it's family," she insisted, as if that word were meant to solve everything. "I'm sure they didn't mean to hurt you back then. Can't you just let it go and be a bigger person?" I closed my eyes, attempting not to snap. Being the bigger person doesn't mean letting people walk all over you. It's about knowing when to put yourself first. There was a pause on the other end, and I could hear her sigh heavily. "Well, I just hope you don't regret this one day, or you're going to miss your family and they won't be there." I did not say anything. I simply hung up. The morning of the wedding, I awoke with a strange mix of calm and anxiety. It wasn't the typical, "what if something goes wrong" wedding day nerves. It was more like I was waiting for a shoe to drop. I knew my family wasn't invited, but I had a feeling they'd find a way to participate somehow now. But Noah, being the fantastic guy he is, wouldn't let me linger on it. When I informed him about my concerns while we prepared separately, he just grinned and said, "And this day is about us. Nothing else matters. If anyone tries to ruin it, I'll personally escort them out." That made me giggle, and for the first time in weeks, I felt better. The place we chose was ideal. It was tiny and intimate, a garden surrounded by flowers, twinkling lights strung through the trees, and a small gazebo where we'd exchange vows. I did not want a large, elaborate wedding. I wanted something authentic and full of love, and that's precisely what it was. My closest friends were there, as well as those extended family members who had been good to me in the past. It felt right. As I stood in front of the mirror, finishing off my dress, my maid of honor, my best friend Jenna, strolled in and smiled. "World, you look amazing, Em." "Thanks," I replied gently, feeling a rush of emotion. Jenna perched on the side of the couch, watching me for a bit. "Are you okay?" I hesitated before nodding. "Yeah, I don't know. Sad, I guess. Not about today, but about the fact that my family isn't here." She grimaced and leaned forwards. "Words. Claire, it's okay to feel that. Just because you made the right choice doesn't mean it doesn't hurt." Her words struck me hard. I turned to face her, tears welling up in my eyes. "I wanted them to care, you know. I wanted them to fight for me when I was a kid, and they never did." Jenna got up and hugged me fiercely. "You don't need their approval. You have people who love you. Focus on that?" I nodded and took a long breath. She was correct. Today was not about my family. It was about me and Noah. When the ceremony began, I was so taken with the beauty of it all that I forgot about everything else. I recall standing at the end of the aisle staring at Noah thinking, this is it. This is what happiness feels like. As I stepped closer to him, I felt a rush of liberation sweep over me. I wasn't the forgotten younger sister anymore. I wasn't the youngster who pleaded to be included and was turned down. I was a bride surrounded by people who genuinely loved me and wished to see me happy. The vows were wonderful. Noah pledged to love me, protect me, and always be by my side. I promised the same. By the time we said I do, there was not a dry eye in the audience, including mine. The reception was all I hoped for. We laughed, ate, and danced till our feet hurt. My friends toasted us, offering amusing anecdotes and genuine wishes for the future. Noah's parents, who had always been so nice to me, told me they were proud to have me as a member of the family. At one point, I snuck away from the crowd to take everything in. I stood at the garden's edge, looking at the lights glittering in the trees and the people laughing together, and I felt so full. For so many years, I believed the lie my family told me, that I didn't matter and wasn't significant enough to be a part of their lives, but standing there, watching all these individuals who genuinely cared about me, I understood something. I mattered to those who deserved to know me. Later that night, as the event was winding down, one of my cousins grabbed me aside. "Hey Claire, I probably shouldn't say this, but," I groaned. "What is it now?" She appeared bashful. Your mom and Brooke apparently threw some kind of dinner tonight as an alternative to your wedding thing. I glanced at her for a second before giggling. Are you serious? She nodded. I know. It's pathetic. I just thought you should know. I shook my head while still giggling. That's fine. Let them throw their pity party. I hope the food's good. My cousins seemed to expect me to be upset, but frankly, I wasn't. If anything, it proved that I had made the correct decision. My family had spent my entire life excluding me and then attempting to justify it. They couldn't deal with the fact that I was now drawing the boundary. At the conclusion of the night, Noah and I danced one more time in front of everyone. As we swung together, I said, I'm glad we did this. He grinned at me and said, Me too, Em. This is just the beginning. And for the first time, I actually believed it. My family wasn't present. They missed the happiest day of my life. But it was their loss, not mine. Because when I looked around the room, surrounded by love and laughter, I realized I have all I ever needed. None of it came from them. I honestly thought the worst was over after the wedding. The day had been amazing, all I had hoped for and more, and I felt like I'd finally moved on from my family's drama. I did not miss them during the ceremony. I didn't think about what it would have been like if they were present. I was surrounded by people who loved me, which was enough. But if there's one thing I've discovered about my family, it's that they dislike being neglected. It's almost as if they couldn't accept the reality that I was happy without them. They decided to stir the stew one last time. It began with a message from Brooke 1 week after the wedding. Of course, it was Brooke, who had always been the first to point the finger when it came to family problems. I saw some pictures from your wedding. I can't believe you kept it in the garden. It appeared casual, but I suppose that was what you intended. I looked at the message astonished. She couldn't even attempt to be polite. It wasn't enough for her to simply leave me alone. She needed to find something to criticize. I was tempted to respond sarcastically, saying that while her wedding may have been prettier year, mine was not, full of artificial smiles and people who didn't care about me. But I stopped myself. I was under no obligation to respond to her. A few days later, I began receiving messages from extended family members whom I hadn't heard from in years. Brooke, Adam, and Ethan appeared to be working together to present me as the enemy. My Aunt Linda, who tried to guilt-trip me before the wedding, wrote me another message. Claire, I am not sure what happened between you and your siblings, but they are deeply upset. Brooke claims she tried to reach out, but you ignored her. Perhaps it is time to let go of the past. I exhaled and rolled my eyes. How many times did I need to explain this? How many people did my siblings have to drag into this mess before they understood I wasn't moving? Noah realized how frustrated I was and sat down alongside me. Another guilt trip, he inquired, looking at my phone. Yeah, Aunt Linda again. She says they're hurt. He snorted. Hurt because they can't control you anymore. I smiled slightly. He was not mistaken. I just don't get it. They ignored me for years. I begged to be included in their lives, and they shut me out. Now suddenly, I'm the bad guy for setting boundaries. That's how it always goes. He added softly, when you start protecting yourself, the people who hurt you are the first ones to cry about it. The actual low point came a few days later when my mother arrived unexpectedly. It was a Sunday afternoon, and Noah and I were having a relaxed day, making brunch in our jammies and joking over burned pancakes. We heard a knock on the door, and I froze. I knew it was her. I opened the door to see my mother standing there looking as dramatic as ever. Her, Claire? She replied, her voice already bearing the familiar tone of disappointment. We need to talk. I exhaled. Mom, now isn't a good time. She didn't care. She pulled the door slightly open, attempting to walk inside. Noah appeared behind me, placing a kind hand on my shoulder for comfort. Claire, please, she added. This has gone far enough, life. Your siblings are devastated. Devastated? Do you really think this is how a family should act? I clenched my jaw and kept my voice steady. You don't get to show up here and lecture me, Mom. I invited the people who care about me to my wedding. They didn't make the cut, and that's their fault, not mine. Her face took on that old look of surprise, as if she couldn't understand how I could possibly stand up to her. You don't mean that? They love you, Claire. They're your family. No, Mom, I replied, my voice firm. Family doesn't make you feel small. Family doesn't leave you out when you're a kid and then demand to be part of your life when it's convenient for them. I spent my entire life trying to prove I mattered to them, and they never cared. I'm done. She blinked, stunned into stillness for once. I could sense she wanted to protest, relaxed, but Noah stepped forward, his voice soothing yet firm. I think it's time for you to leave, he remarked simply. My mother looked between the two of us, her expression a mix of wrath and despair. You'll regret this, Claire, she whispered softly, like if she were giving a premonition. You'll miss us one day, and we won't be there. I regarded her gaze unflinchingly. No, Mom, I won't. It. Noah shut the door behind her, and I stood there for a second, trying to digest everything. I assumed I'd feel guilty, but I did not. I was relieved. The next day, I received a text from Ethan. Mom said she came to talk to you, but you slammed the door in her face. Claire, you're really mature. You've become someone I don't recognize. I read the message out loud to Noah, who shook his head. Block him. You don't need that. So I did. I blocked one by one every brother and relative who opted to join the guilt train. That day I discovered something very important. I did not owe them my time, energy, or even an explanation. For many years they made me feel invisible. Now, I was in control. The subsequent weeks were peaceful. I finally felt like I could breathe after a long period of frequent messages and passive-aggressive comments. Noah and I concentrated on settling into married life, decorating our small apartment and planning our future. We were sitting on the couch one night, watching a stupid movie, when Noah turned to me. Do you regret it at all? Not having them at the wedding? I considered it briefly before shaking my head. No. I thought I would, but I don't. I spent so long trying to earn their approval, and for what? I don't miss them. I don't miss feeling like I'm not good enough. He smiled and clasped my hand. Good. You deserve better. And he was correct. I deserved better. A month after the wedding, I received a final communication. This time it was from Brooke's number, but it was sent from a different phone because I had already blocked her. Claire, you've wrecked this family. I hope you are happy. I glanced at the screen for a brief moment before deleting the message. I didn't feel angry anymore. I just felt finished. Because I was pleased. For the first time in my life, I was not seeking their approval. I wasn't begging for small amounts of love and attention. I was surrounded by individuals who cared for me. And it was enough. It has always been. You've listened to my story. I hope she shocked you just like she shocked me. Subscribe to me because it will be the best support for me in this very difficult time. You've been on the Shocking Reddit Confessions channel.